Welcome to the breakdown for October 15th, 2020. This is a show where we break down some of the biggest stories happening in the world right now and give you my opinion on them. Now, this is my opinion. If you want to learn more about these stories, check out the show notes down below. I'll put a link to each story there so you can read them for yourself and let me know what you think. I'll love to hear from you. Now, if you're new here, do me a favor. Hit that subscribe button, hit that thumbs up. It really does help us because it lets YouTube know you enjoy what we do here. And if you want more stories like this, follow me on Twitter, LukeBK. There you'll find even more news stories like these that don't make it into the videos. All right, let's get into it because a lot's been happening in the world this week. And we're still sticking with our political-free news as best as we can. All right, let's get into it. Yahoo Groups is shutting down. Now, Yahoo Groups in the early 2000s was the place to be. I distinctly remember being a member of several, especially ones for a summer camp I went to when I was younger. They had a Yahoo group. I remember that being a place to reconnect with a lot of people I didn't know or didn't keep in contact with, I should say, after summer ended. And it was my first real experience with like, hey, wow, I'm reconnecting with people that I knew in person but lost contact with. Long before MySpace and Facebook and all that made that very common, I remember Yahoo Groups being the first time that ever happened for me. Then there was all kinds of others, from show groups to groups about locations and different things. It was popular. Now, confession, I didn't even remember that Yahoo Groups was still a thing, but it is. It is shutting down, coming up very quickly. So if you are still a member of a Yahoo Group, and there are a good amount. I've heard from several of my followers on Twitter that they still use Yahoo Groups. Make sure you keep an eye on that. Find some other way. Facebook, Twitter, whatever you're going to do, make sure you find another way to keep in contact because Yahoo Groups is sadly going away. All right, story number 2. The state of Tennessee has made a rather significant oops, though they say they've corrected it. They've accidentally put 13 pallets, I should say, of pandemic testing. We won't say that word here so it won't get demonetized. But stuff to test for that particular pandemic that's running around up for auction. Yes, instead of going to be actually used for testing, Tennessee accidentally listed them for sale. Now, after the items were spotted on the website, the govdeals.com, which is a pretty cool website if you ever want to pick up some surplus government equipment, computers, desks, all kinds of stuff. It's pretty cool there. But apparently, if you also want to see if you have a particular disease, you can buy a test there in pallet size. Now, they took it down. They said that was a mistake. But it just kind of goes back to that whole what else kind of is for sale that may not have been meant to be put for sale on these websites. Of course, we get the standard, we're investigating lines. But it's very interesting to see that Tennessee accidentally put up not just like, oh, you know, where it's a big lot of stuff and in that lot was a box or two of test kits. No, 13 pallets of test kits were put up for sale, which, you know, that looks pretty bad, unfortunately. All right, speaking of accidents in the federal government, bags full of undelivered mail in Pennsylvania was found outside a postal worker's home. Some neighbors noticed these large trash bags spilling out full of mail that hadn't been delivered, reported it, and special agents from the U.S. Postal Office, Inspector General, investigated and determined, yes, this postal worker, instead of delivering the mail, dumping it in trash bags outside his house to get the money. Now, this isn't new. We've seen this over time. Postal workers dumping it in rivers and more, and not just the U.S. Postal Office. UPS and others have had similar issues over time. But it is one of those very annoying things. Weakest link, right? Weakest link is the person who doesn't want to do the work that day. But the U.S. Post Office is investigating. They promise this is a very limited case and it won't be happening again. Always interesting though, and we always have these, right? You buy something, you mail something, and it ships and never gets to you. What happened to it? Lost in the system. We've had stories where a letter, a piece of item gets discovered and 6 years, 7 years, 10 years later, it finally gets delivered. And then we had times where it just completely gets lost in the mail. The truth though is, with the vast amount of mail that does go through, it's rather impressive that we have such a low number of those kinds of instances so that when things like this happen, they become big mail because they are big mail. They become big news because they are the exception, not the rule. So keep that in mind. All things in perspective, relatively small, rare occurrences when these kind of things happen. All right, story number 4. The U.S. and 7 other countries have signed an agreement with NASA and how they're going to explore the moon and how they're going to honor the international kind of neutrality of the moon, which I thought was very interesting. We're very close to the next phase of establishing an outpost on the moon, unless once again we have another administration that changes that. We were supposed to have already had another exploration manned to the moon. Another administration came, changed those plans. Another administration came, brought them back, but delayed. Those kind of things are what really happens in space travel. One of the biggest issues with space travel is political backing. Often, the money gets pulled back because the administration wants to use it for something else. A new administration comes, they put the money back, you get farther along. A new one comes in, takes the money back. I've talked to people from NASA who said that's one of their biggest obstacles. Well, right now we're getting very close to it. It'd be interesting to see what happens. But we have an agreement in principle with 7 other countries in how we're going to set rules to explore the moon, honor its neutrality, keep it for all of the Earth instead of just one particular country, which I think is really great. Kind of saying, hey, the moon is a neutral place. We're not going to try to claim ownership over parts of it or all of it. It's going to be something here for all the planet Earth. I really love that. You want to learn more about that? Link in the show notes down below. All right, have you ever been to an arcade and played those crane games and just been like, man, this doesn't feel very honest? Crane games are a lot of fun. They're also notoriously difficult, and you can easily spend a lot more money than the items in it are worth when you try to win it. Now, you can actually control how likely you are to win. The store owners can successfully go in there and alter them to make you more likely to win or less likely to win depending what odds they want to set for it. Not much different than any type of similar games of chance, we'll call them. But in Japan, one man has created a stir after playing a crane game for 200 times and never winning. He called the police. Police came in. The employees of the store, who are probably not the ones who maintain the crane machines and set the odds of winning, did it for 300 times in a row, were unsuccessful winning. So for 500 times in a row, people continue to play the game and were never able to win it. And of course, this brought in a little scandal, as the games are widely popular there in Japan, where they're also called UFO catchers, I believe, if I remember right. Anybody familiar with Japanese culture, aren't they also called, instead of crane games where you drop down and grab something, UFO catchers? I was told that when I knew some people from Japan. Let me know if I'm wrong there. Leave a comment. But let me know, have you ever won anything big there? I have won small things, but I often am suspicious about how some of them are rigged. And there are a lot of videos you can find where it shows the different settings. Not to say that they're impossible, just that they will be deliberately difficult to win. All right, with the pandemic happening, cruise ships have been hit very hard. Now some international cruise companies are deciding to downsize their fleets, and the number of cruise ships being salvaged for scrap metal is skyrocketing. Photos out of Turkey shows several Mediterranean and international cruise company ships being dismantled, even some that look very new. Very interesting. If you want to see the photos of these cruise ships being dismantled, check out the show notes. But with the pandemic, these cruise companies seem to be betting on the idea that people aren't going to rush back to cruises. They can find spaces, close quarters, and more. And while they're not getting shut down completely, they are saying we're not going to need as many cruise ships, so they're going to be downsizing some of their older ones, some of the ones they no longer want or keep. Some are being sold, some are being just dismantled for scrap metal to get some money back from. Kind of sad to see, but also it's just kind of business. Well, you're not going to be paying for very, very expensive ships. Cruise ships are very expensive just to have sitting there. The docking fees alone are massive, much less the maintenance, if you don't think you're going to be able to use them in the next 10 years. So keep that in mind. And lastly, as we can continue to change and grow, you've probably heard stories about how human teeth are a little bit different than they used to be. Well, now a new study has come out and said more humans are growing an extra artery in our arms. That basically, as we do more finite things, as we're typing or we're using electronics, or we're more finite control of our fingers and more, we're using more blood flow to our fingers and we're growing more arteries. Layman explanation, read the story down below. But that was very interesting to see that we're continuing to develop, continuing to change, continuing to grow. And as always, we're trying to continue to grow and change this YouTube. My main goal here with this new YouTube channel is to continue to try to offer something new and interesting, help you learn something new every day. I'm a firm believer if you continue to learn, you continue to become educated, it's going to help you grow and become a better person. So keep that in mind. I hope this video helps you out. I hope you all have a fantastic day. I'll talk to you all real soon. Take care, everybody. Be safe.